the one, the only, Ben Sion. Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Just Daf It. Today we're doing Nazir Daf Memvav, Dress Down Friday over here. Forgot my jacket at home, so had a tie, had a shirt. That's all you need, right? It's casual, business casual, polo shirts these days. That's what I'm hearing. All right, the Mishnah says, Mem Hey Amid Beis on the bottom. Right, we learned that he brings 3 karbanos at the completion of his Naziros, Chatas, Ola, and Shlamim. The Shlamim, as opposed to normally a Shlamim, you give the Chazah and Shok. You give one of the legs, the back legs, and the ribs you give to the Kohen. By the Nazir, you also give the Shlamim, you give him the you give him one of the 4 legs also, an extra thing that you give to the Kohen of the Shlamim of the Nazir, and he would cook it and or overcook it or slow cook it. I don't think overcook it. Shulchan, no one can eat something overcooked. You eat something that's slow cooked. Shulchan, I believe, slow cooked. HaKohen nodal says roa b'shela min ha'ayil. The Kohen takes this right foreleg in addition to a regular shlamim. He takes the right foreleg min ha'ayil, from the ayil, which is the ram, which is used for the shlamim. V'chalas matzah achas. And when he gets it, he takes it, and he also takes chalas matzah achas min asal rakik matzah achas. Right, there's I think 40 loaves of bread. So there's 4 different types. One of the chalas matzah, it's kind of a, what we call challah is really chametz. Challah, according to the Torah, is actually made of matzah, unleavened bread. And rakik matzah, one of the wafers that are also made out of matzah. He takes one of each. V'nosin al kape nazir. He has 3 things. He has the wafer, he has the chalas matzah, and he has his right foreleg. V'nosin al kape nazir. He puts it on the hands of the nazir like that. The Gemara elsewhere explains that the Kohen takes his hands and puts it underneath the hands of this Nazir, or former Nazir, and they wave it together. After this whole procedure is done, at that point, the end of the Nazirus has come, and he's permitted to drink wine and to become Tamil Mason. From Shimon Omer, top of an olive, he argues, Shimon says, no, even when they slaughter the first animal and they throw the blood on the mizbeach, right? That's already enough. One of the procedures is enough in order to end the Naziros and allow him to drink wine in Tamil Mason, as opposed to Tanakama, who holds they basically have to do everything, right? Shech the animals, cook the meat of the shlamim, and do the tenufa. You have to wave it. So the Gemara is going to explain the Mahalot. The Pasuk says after the completion of all these procedures, the Nazir will be able to drink wine. Akar hamaisim kulan. Rabbi Lezer says you need to finish everything. Rabbi Lezer happens to be the opinion of the Tanakama in our Mishnah. The Chamim, who was the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, our Mishnah say Akar ma'isa yechidi. Even one act is enough. This is how we pass on the Chamim, which is really Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. Then it's Machlokas, Rabbi Lezer, and Rabbi Shimon. One act is enough. Even throwing the blood of one carbon in his bag is enough. Where's the reason of the Rabbanan? It says afterwards, Nazir will drink wine. Right? The pasuk before this says after he shaves his head, right? Then you do the tnufa. You shave his head, then you do the waving. Just like the achar, the word achar means one action. It's talking about after you shaved his head. That's one action. Afkan achar ma'isei. Therefore, the achar in the second pasuk, achar yishtei yanai yazir, is one of them. One of them could be shaving his head, or it could be bringing a korban. Anything you do is good enough to allow the Nazir to drink wine and to become a mason. Ema adika. So where's the ema adika tarvayu? Maybe it's not a gzeira shava, right? Maybe we just learn achar, right? Achar yishtei hanazir yain, which is talking about after all the procedures, right? Maybe you need 2 or more. Tarva, you need both of them. You need karbanos, which just talks about the tnufa, and you need to shave his head. So basically, you have to bring all the karbanos, which enables you to do the waving, the tnufa, and also you need to shave his head. Where I said we have a tradition of a gzera shava, achar. So the gzera shava is obviously teaching me not to think that the word achar comes to tell you even one action is good enough, and this is how we paskin. Amarav. Rav says, Snufa b'Nazir ma'keves. Snufa by Nazir holds back the Nazir from completing his term. Ali b'daman, according to Ilim Ali b'drabanan. He was according to the Rabbanan, which is really Rav Shimon in our Mishnah. To galachas amri Rabbanan lo. Even shaving his head doesn't. Right? First you bring the karbanos, then you shave his head, then you have this procedure where you wave, right? Wave part of the korban, part of the shlamim, and you wave part of the matzos, right? Together, the Kohen and Nazir together. It's true for me, but if the galachos comes first, doesn't even hold back him completing his Nazir. Certainly the Tnufa does it. I'll leave with the Rebbe Lezer. He's going to Rebbe Lezer, who's a Tanakh in our Mishnah. Pshita, Amar Rebbe Lezer, Achar Ma'asim Kula. You need everything. Whereas the Ma'ad the same, Kevin Linin Kapara, Shari Mitzvah. Everywhere else in the Torah, where this Tnufa is a mitzvah, other places in the Torah, not just by a Nazir, by a Matzorah, by other different types of Taros, by Levim, there was a Tnufa when they were inaugurated in the Beis Hamikdash. And we elsewhere, the Gemara in Sukkah says that Shari mitzvah, Tnufa is not considered an essential part of the mitzvah. It's remnants of the mitzvah. I mean, the mitzvah is completed without it. It just makes the mitzvah more muhudr to do it. Here also, it shouldn't hold back the completion of the Naziros. Kamashman, it does. That's the Chiddush, because normally it doesn't, and here it does. That's Rav's Chiddush. Omima Kevis, top of Memam Abayas, it really holds back. Vatanya, those Torahs HaNazir. The words Torahs HaNazir, an extra pasuk. This is a Torah. These are the laws of Nazir. Bein sheyesh l'kapayim, bein she'en l'kapayim. The Gemara darshans, it works. The Naziris, right, is completed whether the man has hands or not. Even if he's missing his hands, he can't do Tnufa. Tnufa has to be done in the palm of your hand. He's missing his hands, right? It's still the completion of Nazir. So Ela Hadasanya, right? So you see that Tufa is not Makevis. Even if you don't have hands, you can't do it. It still doesn't hold it back. Ela Tanya. So what are you going to say? The Bryce says, Zos Torahs HaNazir, Ben Sheyesh Lo Sar, Ben She'ein Lo Sar. Right? The Gemara has a different Bryce. Torahs HaNazir includes every type of Nazir, right? Just like we said, if he doesn't have palms, also he doesn't have hair. He's supposed to shave his head. Let's say he's bald, right? Plus you'll say also the shaving his head doesn't hold you back. Tanya Nazir Mamurat. Let's say he was a Nazir who's bald. There's no point in passing a razor over his head. There's no hair on his head. But Beisil says, nonetheless, you should do it. You have to do it. And it's ma'akiv. Ravina says, what does Beit Shammai mean? You don't have to. Meaning, because he doesn't have hair, right? So there's nothing you can do to fix it. He can't end his zeros because he doesn't have hair. You have to go to Rogaine and regrow your hair. According to Beis Hillel, according to Beis Hillel, you have a way of fixing it by processing the razor into over your head. This is what Rabbi Das teaches. Amar Rabbi Das, Beis Shammai and Rabbi Lezer amud over echad. Beis Shammai and Rabbi Lezer said the same thing. Rabbi Lezer, my Rabbi Lezer, what's Rabbi Lezer? The Sanya ein lo boen yad v'regel ein lo taro olamis. When it comes to a Metzorah, at the end of his purification process, he's supposed to sprinkle blood on his right thumb and his right big toe. Unless he doesn't have, he's missing either or both. He can't become tar. Shimon says, no, you place it, it's not on the thumb, you place it a little above the thumb, whatever arm he has, that's the place to place it, both on the foot and the hand. Small they say put it on your left thumb or your left big toe. So that's where we see Rabbi Lezer says, right? If you don't have it, it's ma'akiv over here. So, and that's the same thing as Beis Shammai, and that's exactly what Rav taught, right? Rav taught that according to Rabbi Lezer, right? Rabbi Lezer is basically a sheet of Beis Shammai. The Gemara says Rabbi Lezer is a shmusihu. That's what Rav was teaching. And according to Rabbi Lezer, it says that everything holds back Tnufa, right? What's the Chiddush of telling me that, right? So that's the Chiddush. The Chiddush is that it holds it back, like Beis Shammai and Rabbi Lezer, that because if you don't have hands, you can't do the Tnufa, or even if you had hands but you didn't do the Tnufa, so therefore it's Ma'akiv the Kapara. According to him, you haven't finished the completion of the Nazir, so you can't drink wine in Matam el-Mesim. Lishnach, a different way of saying it. Amri la'amar Rav Tnufa ben Nazir Makeves. A different way of saying. Rav says again, Tnufa ben Nazir Makeves. I'll leave with the man. The Gemara, same discussion. I'll leave with the Rabbi Lezer in our Mishnah. Pshita, Amar Rabbi Lezer, Achar Maisim Kulam. You need to finish everything. I'll leave with the Rabbanan. He says, according to the Rabbanan, Hashti Yishlomet Galachas Amri Rabbanan Lama'akva Tnufa Mibai. They say you don't need to shave your head. Certainly you don't need to do it what they after, which is Tnufa. So that's the Chiddush. Rav is saying, according to Rabbi Lezer, Mila Ma'akva. Right? Is it true that it's not ma'akiv? But Tanya Zos Torahs HaNazir, Ben Sheyesh Lo Kapayim. Ubein she'ein lo kapayim, right? Torah and Nazir includes whether he has hands or doesn't have hands, right? Seemingly that's a complete. It's okay. You don't need it, so you don't need it. The Gemara says, what do you mean you don't need it? Hadatanya, zos Torah and Nazir ben sheish lo sar ben she'ein lo sar, whether he's bald or not. There, you're right. You're going to say, should it hold it back? The Bride says doesn't remove it. Al Rosh. But Yishama says you don't have to pass a razor over his head. So according to Beis Hillel, this is a different way of understanding Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Right? Before we said Beis Shammai says ein lo takana. According to this, Beis Hillel is the one who says sarach ve'ein lo takana. The Beis Shammai yesh lo takana. According to Beis Shammai yesh lo takana. And the Bryce they say ein sarach lahaver taro rosho, meaning you don't need it. But at least according to Beis Hillel, we see that it is ma'akiv, and because you don't have it, you can't do it. So therefore, Rav is justified in saying that if you don't have hands, then it holds it back according to the second version. According to Beis Hillel, it doesn't work. So Rav is saying, right, exactly like Beis Hillel, if you have hands, you don't do it. It holds it back. Similar to if you don't have hands, you don't, and because if you don't have, you can't do it. It does hold the process of completing your Nazirus back. According to this version, Beis Shammai holds he has a takana. Right? Basically, he doesn't have to do anything. In this case, he doesn't have to, which would be basically according to Beis Shammai. According to this version, Tenufa would not be ma'ak. Rab was only saying this according to Beis Hillel, right? As opposed to in the first Lishna, Rab was saying that according to Beis Shammai. But this argues in Rabbi Bitas. Rabbi Bitas said Rabbi Lezer and Beis Shammai said the same thing. According to this, it would be basically Rabbi Lezer and Beis Hillel would say the same thing, not Rabbi Lezer and Beis Shammai. So that would not be like this Lishna would not be in accordance with Rabbi Bitas's teaching. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Sion, where I talk about something we touched upon earlier. I didn't fully explain. The Gemara a couple dafim ago discussed the difference between, for example, a metzora, or someone's called mechusar kapara, a zav or a metzora, mechusar kapara. He goes to the mikveh as Erev Shemesh. The next day he brings karbanos, which are for kapara, for the sin that he did, for getting saras or ziva. Zav is a type of sin, right? Because it happens. Zav, it doesn't happen by onus, right? If it happens by onus, you're not responsible. The Gemara in Kedushin says for ziva, you ate too much, you drank too much. The ziva happened, the zav happened, the mission happened. Metzora, the Gemara says many places. The Gemara says erchen, because of lashon hara, primarily you get saras. So you need kapara, mechusar kapara. Those are the words. The karbanos are kapara over here. According to how we paskin, comes out as machlokas in the Mishnah, as machlokas in the Gemara, but we paskin like Reb Shimon in the Mishnah, the Rabbanan in the Gemara, which basically say that just throwing the blood on the mizbeach of one of the animals is good enough. You don't have to actually bring all three karbanos. And technically, we learned any one of the karbanos is okay, right? Technically, it's machlokas which comes first. The chatas comes first, or the shlamim comes first. I believe we paskin the shlamim comes first. So normally, if you bring the shlamim, you throw the blood of the shlamim on the mizbeach. In the shlamim, and I explained before, shlamim and ola are not for kapara. Chatas is for kapara. Chatas, he sinned because, right, he abstained from wine, which is a sin according to Azar Kapara. But the ola and the shlamim, I explained it elsewhere. The ola is basically a doro in the Gemara says a present to Hashem. You're bringing karbanos to Hashem. Hashem's letting you purify yourself from your nazir, letting you end your nazirus. So you bring a doro to Hashem, present to Hashem, because Hashem's the King of Kings. And the shlamim is to make peace. The kohanim are bringing all this karbanos, so you give a little bit to yourself, a little bit to the kohanim, you join together, and it's sort of a thanksgiving to them, to the kohanim, but it's nothing to do with kapara. So how could it be that you don't need kapara over here in order to end your nazirus, right? We learned that, right? We made this distinction earlier, a couple of daf ago. We made this distinction that it's really not called mechusar kapara. The karbanos are not part of the kapara. It's not exactly the same as zav or mitzora. So I'm going to explain that distinction, Ian with Ben Sion, coming up next.